Economists say Fitch rating agency's downgrade of 4 of South Africa's main banks comes as no surprise following the country's recent downgrade to just above junk status. The agency has downgraded the long-term foreign and local currency issue of First Rand, Nedbank and Standard Bank from BBB status to BBB minus status. And ABSA's long-term foreign and local currency issue are down to BBB from BBB plus. And now for more on this downgrade, we are now joined on the line by Dr. Azar Jammine. Thank you so much for joining us. Many economists there, Dr. Jammine, saying that this comes as no surprise at all. Is that the same for you?
Very much so. It's a conventional type of move that one would expect. Once your sovereign rating is downgraded, it follows that your banks will also be downgraded, because the perception is that if your country is threatened with default, then this has a knock-on effect on your banking system's solvency as well. The most classic example, of course, was Greece last year, where we saw the government on the brink of default, and the banks, there was a run on the banks as a result of this. So even though initially they were still in a very healthy state.
And what does this mean, firstly, for the banks themselves and for the economy in general?
The main effect this would have on the banks themselves is that when they borrow money from other banks, or other financial institutions, the interest rate that they would pay would probably be a little higher to cover the additional risk that is now attached to them. And since they would pay more interest on what the money that they borrowed, it follows that the interest that they charge consumers will also tend to rise. So one should expect their margins to be enhanced, and as a result, this is bad news for consumers because they will end up paying higher interest rates themselves.
And do you see this downgrade being directly linked to the pressures on the currency and, of course, the changes at Treasury?
Well, no, the downgrade has nothing to do with the recent changes. It has everything to do with the fact that Fitch downgraded the country's national credit rating from BBB to BBB minus 2 weeks ago. And it follows that they then went and downgraded the commercial banks of the country of which they had downgraded the national sovereign debt. And that's exactly what's happened. It actually has very little to do with what happened over this past week with regard to the change in finance ministers. It would have happened anyhow.
And can we expect any further downgrades possibly from other agencies and also in other sectors?
We could in due course have further downgrades, especially following the events of the past week. There is now grave suspicion that the National Treasury's independence has been compromised, and that President Zuma has put into the position of finance minister someone who will simply obey his instructions and therefore may not pursue policy of fiscal discipline as avidly as the ratings agencies would like to see. But for the moment, we're unlikely to see any downgrading credit rating because there is no major ratings agency likely to do a credit review in the near term. I think the first next reviews come in June. It is possible then that in June we will see further downgrades, and to the extent that those downgrades have been enhanced by the change in ministries of finance, to that extent this week's events have got some bearing to play with the outlook for further downgrades. But in terms of today's downgrade of the commercial banks, that had everything to do with Fitch downgrading our credit rating long before the Ministry of Finance was changed.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Azar Jammine, Chief Economist at Economists.